That's my new kitchen tool. And why do you need it? It's because whoever designed the turkey must have been drunk. The breast meat is up, the dark meat is down, and hey, the dark meat takes longer to cook than the white meat. So what are you going to do? You can flip it, you can butterfly it, you can twist and turn it, and every time you end up with dry white meat. Well, I have a better idea. Let me take my chainsaw and make some turkey parts. Go into the kitchen with Becky to figure out how to make a great braised Thanksgiving turkey with a fabulous sauce. This is one of my favorite emails from a viewer. This is somebody who must be my sister, because we're genetically, obviously, very similar. When my timing is off in the kitchen, I'm frantically trying to get a mini masterpiece of a meal onto the table without ruining it in the last final moments, while dodging my whiny kids and starving husband and stepping over toys littered the kitchen floor as the doorbell rings and I have to go to the bathroom. My temper flares and my patience dies completely. Here's the payoff. I don't like it when other people are in the kitchen while I cook.
I think you wrote that email to yourself.
Yeah, it must be. It's my kitchen, it's out of my kitchen. So today, Becky's going to show us a little bit about turkey and stuffing. It might make that last minute stuff a little easier.
Yeah, this is as easy as it gets. This is taking it easy on Thanksgiving, and you'll have a masterpiece at the end.
And no one in my kitchen.
That's right. All by yourself.
All right.
So we start out like we almost always do with turkey. We're going to make a brine because we're going to be braising the turkey today. And even though we're cooking the turkey in a moist environment, it still has the potential to dry out. So we're starting with a cup of table salt, going into 8 quarts of water here. And I'm also adding a cup of sugar. That'll add a little bit of sweetness to the brine. Let's just dissolve that. So you'll see the turkey's already partially cut up, so that means no carving right before we're ready to eat. So that takes.
And that's a very stressful moment for most people.
It is a stressful moment. So this takes the pressure off. A lot of the work is already done. Okay. So this is a 5 to 7 pound turkey breast. I also have 2 drumsticks and 2 thighs. That's about 4 pounds worth of dark meat there. So this will brine for 4 to 6 hours, and you definitely don't want to let it go longer than 6 hours because it will get too salty.
You know, a lot of viewers have written in and said, how salty does it get? Because a lot of people are concerned about brining and too much salt. So we did a test. We took boneless, skinless chicken breasts. We put them in 2 quarts of water with half a cup of table salt for 30 minutes, roasted them, cooked them, and then at the end we measured the salt, sent it to a lab. There's about 353 milligrams in a breast, which worked out to be about 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt per serving. The USDA, in its infinite wisdom, says you could have a teaspoon of salt per day, so it's 1/8 of your total salt intake, which seems quite reasonable. So the answer is not too much.
So we'll put this in the fridge, and then when we come back, we'll get started on my favorite part, the stuffing.
Okay. So when I was young, my mother used to stuff the bird on Thanksgiving and then tasted great because the juices came down. The problem was this is all we got. And so this would serve a family of 1,
right?
Much less a family of 4 or 6. So the question for you is, how do we bake stuffing separately outside the bird to get enough stuffing for lots of people for leftovers, but it's got to taste as good as this?
The first thing you need to start with is the bread, and I have lots of different types of bread over here that we tried. The first is baguette, and baguette's great, but it's crusty. And
too crusty?
Too crusty. Okay. That's ciabatta. Similar problem. It's kind of tough. Yeah.
Especially this one. This one's tough.
Right. Okay. It's been around for a while. That's a horrible.
They call it Italian loaf.
Italian bread. It disintegrates. It's just fluff. Surprisingly, we went with plain old hearty white sandwich bread. It's soft, but it holds its texture. So this is 16 cups of that sandwich bread. I cubed it up and put it in a 250-degree oven for about an hour.
Now, you might think that throwing bread in the oven is unnecessary. Just have some stale bread sitting around. That'll be fine. Actually, it's not fine. We tested it. If you let bread sit out, it goes through a process called retrogradation, which means that the starch recrystallizes. That happens fairly quickly. It hardens, but inside those cubes is a lot of moisture left because that moisture is not coming out. You put it in the oven instead, evaporation happens much more quickly, recrystallization happens, but also the bread dries out, which means that when you reheat the bread, especially with some moisture, it actually remains fairly toothsome. If you just let it on the counter to harden up, that moisture is going to come out and you're going to get a soggy stuffing.
So let's put this together. You can see I have my secret weapon here. turkey wings. We needed a way to get some turkey juices into the stuffing to make it taste like it cooked inside the cavity of a bird.
I thought you were going to take another whole turkey and put it over the stuffing like they used to. Remember they used to roast 2 birds, one for juices and one to eat? Yeah. Just throw it away.
I know. But we're using just the wing. Lots of fat from the skin will baste the stuffing as it cooks. If you would give me some medium-high heat there, we'll get our oil heating up. And if you want to give me a hand here, we just want to poke the wings about 10 to 15 times. This will help the fat render out. Our oil is shimmering. Let's put the wings in the skillet here. So we'll let these cook for 4 to 6 minutes on this side. Like I said, we want some of the fat to start to come out. We want the wings to get nice and brown, so they'll be ready to put on top of the stuffing, and then their juices can flavor that stuffing as it cooks.
Okay.
It's been about 5 minutes. Take a look. Starting to get brown.
I'm a lazy cook, and if I saw this direction, like saute the wings before putting them up, I might skip it.
Do not skip it. The stuffing is the part of the meal that everyone talks about. It's the best part. It's worth it to spend 10 minutes sauteing a few.
But the stuffing's going to be a lot better if you saute them first.
Absolutely. So we flip those over. We'll let them go another 4 to 6 minutes on the second side.
Okay.
So it's been about 5 minutes. Let's take a look. Looking good. So those can come out of the skillet.
So when you get up in the morning and look in the mirror and go, hey, looking good.
Give myself some pep talk. Don't you do that?
No, I don't go, oh, not looking so good.
Like, oh, no. So we'll take those wings, set those aside. They're clearly not fully cooked. These will continue to cook on the stuffing. Now I have a pound of breakfast sausage, still on medium-high heat. And this will just add, sausage, you can't go wrong, and everyone loves sausage stuffing. So this will add a lot more flavor and some fat to the stuffing to give it that nice moist texture that we're looking for. This will take 5 to 7 minutes until it's cooked. So it's been about 6 minutes. The sausage is getting nice and brown here. So we'll take that out of the skillet. So we'll put that on some paper towels to let it drain. And we'll leave that fat in the skillet because, of course...
I just want to say, you just can't lose with having sausage. I mean, it doesn't matter what else you do.
It's true. Can't go wrong. And now let's add some butter.
Okay.
4 tablespoons of butter. And we'll turn the heat down just a touch from medium-high to medium. I have a 1.5 cups of celery and the same amount of onion. We'll add those to the butter. So the veggies are in. I'm also adding a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And we'll let these cook for 5 to 7 minutes. We want the vegetables to soften, but we don't want them to get too brown. So it's been about 7 minutes. You can see the vegetables are nice and soft. Now we'll add 2 tablespoons of fresh thyme, 2 tablespoons of sage.
That's a lot.
Yeah, well, we're making a lot of stuffing. And a teaspoon of pepper. So we'll just cook that for about 30 seconds. We just want to sort of bloom the flavors of those spices in the butter a little bit. You can really smell it. Now I have a cup of chicken broth. Always cook with low sodium broth in the kitchen. That way we can control how salty the finished dish will be. And it's really important to scrape the pan here. We want to get every last bit of flavor. Remember, we have the wings and then the sausage. So we want to get all of those brown bits up off the bottom of the pan.
It's starting to smell like Thanksgiving.
I know.
Where are the whiny
good?
kids?
I know.
Like that letter at the beginning.
Okay, so we can kill the heat on that. Now it's just time to mix everything together. So I have 3 eggs. Eggs are really common in stuffing. They just help to set the dish a little bit. We want to add the veggies to our toasted bread over there. Okay. So here's my 3 eggs and a 1.5 cups of broth. There's a 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And I just want to get any juices that are coming off of these wings, every ounce of flavor out of those guys. And then you can add this to your bread mixture over there as well. Here goes that sausage that's all nice and brown. Stir that in.
Okay.
And then I have a cup of dried cherries. We have all these rich flavors, and the sweetness of the cherries is going to taste great in there. And then last but not least, this is a cup of pecans, and I toasted those as well.
And that's 6 or 7 minutes in a 350 oven.
You got it.
This does look really
good. Doesn't that look good? Yeah.
Maybe we could just skip the turkey. Okay, there you go.
So let's put this into the baking dish. This is a 9x13 dish, and I buttered it. We're going to bake this on a baking sheet. We want the bottom of the dish to stay relatively soft. We don't want it to burn. Okay, and now the wings. So we'll just arrange these guys on top of the stuffing. And then as the stuffing bakes, the juices will come out, some more fat will render out.
It's a clever idea.
I know, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we want to cover this tightly with foil. We want this to stay really, really moist, so it's important to make sure that this is really tightly sealed. And then we're going to bake this at 375 until the wings are done when they register about 175 degrees. That'll take about an hour.
Okay.
Let's take that stuffing out. So we'll just let that stuffing rest while we work on the turkey. We'll heat it back up when it's time for dinner. So here's our turkey. It's out of the brine. It was in the brine for about 6 hours. I'm making sure I'm patting the turkey nice and dry. We're going to roast it, and then we're actually going to braise the turkey. Braising is great because the braising liquid will form the basis of a fantastic tasting gravy, and we're also able to flavor the braising liquid so that it can give the turkey some great taste as well. So I have 3 onions chopped up, 3 stalks of celery, 2 carrots, that's 6 cloves of garlic, and I smashed those.
So for people like me, you can be very imprecise how you do the chopping. A rough chop, right?
Rough chop, you know what? No one's actually going to eat these vegetables.
Okay.
They're just there for flavor.
So whatever.
Just hack them up, just get them in there. Yeah. I have 4 bay leaves, some thyme, and some parsley, the same flavors that were in our stuffing. And then I have ½ an ounce of dried porcinis, and these are sort of a secret weapon. They have really rich, earthy flavor, and they're going to make our broth taste really nice.
You're going to say umami?
I didn't say it, you said it.
Meaty, okay.
And I rinse those off. Those can be really sandy, so it's important to rinse them. And then 2 tablespoons of melted butter. So we'll toss all those together. Here goes our turkey. Here's the turkey breast. Our 2 legs. And our thighs.
So braising, we're simplifying the actual cooking of the turkey?
All we need to do is get this in the oven, and then we can go have a glass of wine and relax.
Ah!
Doesn't that sound great?
What a great recipe.
That's a great Thanksgiving. So here's a little bit more butter. I'm just going to brush the skin. This is 2 tablespoons of melted butter. We just want to get a little browning. We are braising, but we want the skin to get a little bit brown before we start the braising process, because that'll of course add flavor. It'll also help the fat to render out from the skin a little bit. We have some pepper to go on top. Remember, these are brines. They're already seasoned very nicely with salt. Now we'll just add some pepper. And before I put that in the oven, I'll get the braising liquid heated up. I'm using 4 cups of low-sodium chicken broth. So turn on the heat. We just need medium heat, just so that gets warm. And then for a little bit of acidity and even more flavor, a cup of dry white wine. And you'll see we're not using too much braising liquid here. We want the flavors to be really rich and relatively concentrated, so we're using just sort of the minimum amount required to get this bird cooked. We'll put the bird in the oven. I have a 500-degree oven, and it'll brown for about 20 minutes.
Okay. You know, over the years, one of the questions we've gotten is, why do you brine poultry and not red meat? Well, there are 2 answers. Red meat isn't cooked as much, 125 to 130, poultry over 160. The more you cook meat, the more moisture loss. The second is that poultry doesn't have as much connective tissue. If you do barbecue, for example, and you cook meat over 200, that connective tissue breaks down, turns to gelatin, and it's like a sponge, absorbs water. What happens in brining is the sodium chloride. The chloride has negative chloride ions that attaches itself to muscle protein. Light charges repel, that lets water in. The second thing that happens is the salt breaks down some of that protein, and much like collagen, turns it into gelatin, which absorbs water. So brining adds moisture, and poultry definitely needs it.
So it's been 20 minutes. Let's get that turkey out of the oven. So you can see the skin is starting to get just a little bit brown. The vegetables have broken down a little bit. And now if you want to add that warm braising liquid, remember that's the 4 cups of chicken broth and the 1 cup of wine.
The wine you promised me I could be drinking while
right.
This was in the oven.
I saved the rest of the bottle for us. So the braising liquid will come about 3/4 of a way up the sides of the turkey. And that's really just going to make a fantastic base for the gravy. So I'll put a piece of parchment down. This will just prevent the acid from the wine from eating through the aluminum foil. And if you'll turn the oven down for me, we had the oven at 500, I want it down to 325. So that'll cook for 1.5 to 2 hours until the breast reaches 160 degrees and the thighs are 175.
Now, meanwhile, I want to get something off my chest because it's bothering me. I have a few pet peeves here at America's Test Kitchen. Number 1 pet peeve is roasting versus braising. Now, even Madeline Kamen, in a wonderful book called The Making of a Cook, which I highly recommend you read, repeats this nonsense, which is that braising holds in moisture more so than roasting. Somehow that liquid in the pot, the pressure it gets in the meat, is just not true. In fact, roasting, braising, and boiling are all the same. All that matters in terms of how much moisture is left over at the end of cooking is the final internal temperature of the meat. It starts to lose moisture at 110. As you go to 130, 40, 50, you lose more and more moisture. How do we know this? We tested it. We took 2 eye rounds, cooked them to medium. One was roasted, one was braised. And guess what? The braised version lost about 28% of the moisture and the roasted about 29%, about the same. So it has nothing to do with moisture loss. Braising is a great technique for creating a sauce while you cook. A lot of flavor, some of that flavor will go into the meat during cooking. So if you want a great sauce, you braise. But roasting, braising, and boiling, internal temperature is all that matters.
So it's been about 2 hours. Let's get that turkey out. Take that off. Smells good.
Boy, it does smell good.
Doesn't it? You can smell the wine and the herbs. And so let's check the temperature. We want the breast to be at 164, 165. That's great. So let's take the parts out. We'll just let them rest on the cutting board while we finish up our gravy. So now I'm going to strain all of these braising liquids into this strainer.
And this is where the braising has a huge advantage over roasting. Because normally you'd have to take stock or make a stock separately and cook it down for 2 or 3 hours, take some of the fat out of the pan. You essentially have the gravy mostly made for you.
Yeah, all we need to do, and I'll show you in a minute, all we need to do is thicken it. I just want to press down on these veggies here. I want to squeeze out all of their yumminess. And now I'll pour these juices through a fat separator. We only need 3 cups to make our gravy. Let's put about that much into our fat separator.
Now Bridget would use a fat separator to eat the fat.
I know, she would.
You use a fat separator and get rid of the fat.
Hey, I'm not
That's the difference.
Okay, so we'll let that stand for about 5 minutes. It just needs a couple minutes for the fat to actually rise to the top. So it's been 5 minutes, and I will pour off 3 cups here. So you can see the fat has risen to the top here. And I actually strained off 3 tablespoons because we'll use a little bit of that fat to build our gravy. Now if you'll give me some medium-high heat there, heat up 3 tablespoons of turkey fat. And I have 3 tablespoons of flour. You just want to whisk that for me. We just want that, cook that. It's going to take about 5 minutes. We want that to get nice and dark golden brown. That's a roux, and that will thicken our yummy braising juices to make a great gravy. So that took about 5 minutes. You can see it's getting nice and golden brown there. And here's our braising liquid. Stir that in. That is going to be one good gravy. So we want this to cook for about 20 minutes. It'll reduce down from 3 cups to about 2 cups, and it'll thicken up a little bit too as it cooks. So I'll reduce the heat to medium-low. And while that's reducing down, we can get our stuffing back in the oven to reheat so everything will be hot. So if you just want to take the wings off, we don't want to put the wings back in the oven, you can just take those off. So that goes back on. I'll turn up the oven for you to 375, and that'll take 20 to 25 minutes to heat through.
Okay.
Can't wait for you to try this. And the turkey's been resting as well, so if you just want to carve us a little bit.
So we'll just follow the breastbone down. 6-inch paring knife actually is, I think, better than a big chef's knife for this because the blade's flexible.
Definitely makes the job easy because you want to get right up against that bone so you don't waste any meat.
There we are.
Oh, it's just perfect. It's so nice and juicy.
Okay.
There you go. Maybe a little gravy?
Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Ready? Happy. The meat is perfectly cooked.
Yeah.
Sometimes, brine turkey has a little bit of a wet texture. This doesn't at all.
And the gravy was effortless. I mean, all we had to do was make that roux and then let it simmer, so.
And now for the stuffing.
Now,
This is what an old-fashioned stuffing should be like.
if you didn't know, you'd think it was
No.
cooked inside the bird.
No.
It has tons of turkey flavor, so moist. It's the best stuffing ever.
So there you have it, a fabulous Thanksgiving dinner. The secret was making the stuffing separate, the turkey wings on top, drip down, adding lots of flavor, just like it would in the bird. The turkey itself was brined at half strength. then roasted for about 20 minutes in a very hot oven turned down, and then we braised the turkey for a couple hours, made its own gravy, and there you have it, homemade gravy with no work, make-ahead stuffing, and delicious braised turkey. So you can get this recipe and all the recipes from this season of America's Test Kitchen, oddly enough, at our website, americastestkitchentv.com, with our testings, tastings, and you can also watch selected episodes of this show. You can also follow us on Twitter. Do you follow me on Twitter? Say yes. Yes, she does.
Every day.
And also on Facebook. Fabulous, easy Thanksgiving. Fabulous stuffing, fabulous turkey.
I love it.